Good morning, everyone. And this time you really don't need your seatbelt, but it's still pretty much turbulent. I'm going to speak about a topic that I'm quite sure just about every one of us has been told that, our water is not so clean, our air is not so clean, even the soils are all contaminated, and stuff like that's going to kill us all. I guess we all know that truth is the ultimate answer to everything, so I'm going to try to shed some light on some of these issues, on basically whether your car put out all this stuff constitutes some kind of air pollution and how bad it is, or how perhaps, if we are going to walk, is it going to help us better than driving a car? Because you have to remember, we are now living in a technological age, scientific and technological age. Do we have any disagreement here? The fact is that, as of today, if you actually drive your car to a shopping mall, let's say a mile, versus, let's say, walk on foot, we are so efficient in terms of making our engines, is that actually, if you want to count, let's say, carbon dioxide emission output, it will take you a lot more carbon dioxide burning by eating all those food, by walking, than actually driving. This is how efficient things has become. So just beware of a lot of this pseudo myth that is going around, right? I want to start with something that is very serious, because here, again, we are all about nothing but the truth. So we have this common disease of a half-truth. Perhaps not all of us here, it's most of the people, in fact, our enemy. Let's call them our enemy. We do indeed have enemy. Devils are working over there. This disease of half-truth can be phrased like this. This is the kind of equation that Al Gore thinks that he can solve, right? How many know how to solve this equation? Half-truth plus half-truth. What is it equal?
Truth.
Yep, but it's lie, of course. Because half-truth, it just doesn't work, okay? You can cheat and lie and say whatever you want, make all that claims and don't worry about it. This is why all this global warming issue, guess what they always say? It doesn't matter what the climate is doing now, even though now the carbon dioxide is rising, the temperature is flat, they say, oh, that's not a problem. It's going to warm in another 50 years, another 100 years. None of them will be accountable for those things later. Whereas from science, we know enough now to say that this carbon dioxide is not going to cause any dangerous global warming. The world that we live in now is extremely strange, mind you. Do you guys notice that you're actually having a sugar from Domino? And it says that it's certified carbon-free. This thing actually comes with a package of video where they are promoting that Domino's is selling you a carbon-free. Please, somebody, carbon is, this sugar makes mainly carbohydrate, right? I mean, you really cannot get rid of the carbon, can you? Go ahead.
So it says it's from cane, pure cane sugar.
Right.
Doesn't the cane contain carbon dioxide?
Yeah, carbon, at least, the carbon bond in carbohydrate, right? This is the kind of stuff that they're doing, because this is all purely promotional. And this is why all this green, all this sustainable nonsense is just too much to take, because most of it is mostly a stunt. It has nothing to do with anything. Whoever buys it because it is carbon-free, I think you should jump off the cliff. Just a suggestion. Later I'll show that how I was attacked, but I just to entertain you a little bit, but that's not the main feature. The main feature is still to talk about all this air pollution, right? But in the process, I happened to be called up one day by this great professor. His name is Richard Wilson. He's a professor of physics at the Harvard Physics Department. I've been there for 27 years, and no one ever called me. I mean, he decided to call me because I was attacked by New York Times. He said, you must have done something right. But here, in the context of what we are doing here, we're trying to examine all these rules and regulation from the US EPA, which is Environmental Protection Agency, right? Look at the statement that Professor Wilson made. He's obviously a liberal and Democrats or what. But in terms of science, he said that the risk analysis produced by the US EPA, this is basically saying that how much danger should we tolerate, right? Life is all about risk and benefit, right? Or benefit and, and cost analysis. He essentially said because the EPA regulation now require us to have risk that can be quantified in terms of 1 in a million over a lifetime. That actually translates to 1 in 10 million of a risk ratio in order to be safe. This is the definition. Remember, definition is very important. This is where they allow all these politicians and socialists and communists to set any rules that they want. because they claim that even one single dose of mercury, for example, will be so bad for you that we should just essentially outlaw mercury, right? But we need mercury for so many other processes that is really useful for life. And that would translate the risk of 1 in 10 million, let's say over short term, is equivalent to a dose of 2 cigarettes in a lifetime. That would already satisfy that. So we're living in a world that is very, very unreasonable, put it this way. US EPA has gone so bad now, in the end of the talk, I'm going to show you that they actually done something that is unforgivable, unpardonable. Even God should try to not so forgiving for these people, because they put all these people under, a bit like during the World War II time, they put these people under human experimentation, put them under diesel exhaust and breathe in stuff where they claim is so dangerous, okay? I'll show you that facts. So essentially, you can quantify. So what does 1 in a 10 million, risk mean? If you just think, if you live in Denver, city of Denver, which is a mile high, right? The natural background radiation, because you are way up there, you're exposed to more radiation. That radiation exposure increases 1 in 2,000, right? So that immediately tell you this risk of 1 in 10 million or 1 in 1 million is ridiculous. Because people in Denver is all supposed to be dead. They're not supposed to play football, right? So this is the context, right? Facts is about context. If you want to live under 1 in 10 million, I think you should just don't live actually, because there's no point. You're gonna be under that risk all the time. It's very, very acceptable. So Professor Wilson is proposing that we should have a more sensible risk-benefit ratio, which is basically, it's about 1 in a 10,000. Then should be safe, okay, if you're under that kind of exposure. That's about all that we have numbers to talk about. And now I'm going to start with how bad things are for me, right? This is a front page of New York Times, by the way. I'm not going to buy New York Times, so I copied that from Greenpeace. And it's actually claiming that I've been hiding money under my bed. My wife can attest that it's not true. And so with that, we're going to start a proper introduction. Reverend Al Sharpton apparently liked me. Sorry, gotta set this up. Oops. No audio. Too bad. Guys, we need some help. Anybody can help here?
I think I can.
Come on up. Because this video is a bit funny. It's worth watching.
First, we're probably gonna want to go back.
It's been playing. Go back.
Alright,
Set the volume of the.
so we're gonna X out this.
What does the audio come up?
All the speakers are at 0%.
Oh yeah, maximum. Yeah. Put it back. Flick it around there and then under that one.
While we have technical difficulties, how many articles are there in the Constitution? Just say it.
7.
Nice. What year was the Constitution signed?
No, you don't want to.
Current trend. Yeah, that's sure.
Good.
That's what we want.
What year was the Constitution
Go there, I'll
ratified?
set it up.
That's a harder one, isn't it?
1788.
Wait.
Yes, 1788, that's right. How many states were necessary to ratify the Constitution? 9. Wow. Good job. What was that?
Delaware was the first one to sign, and New Hampshire was the ninth.
Good for you. Good job.
Now we're on.
Good.
Global warming. Republicans have it down to a science.
If climate change is a problem, and
Y'all can hear it, right?
is or not, do you believe?
No, I'm not a scientist.
I don't know the science behind climate change.
Well, listen, I'm not qualified to debate the science over climate change. What is your take on global warming? I'm not a scientist. I'm not a scientist. It's their favorite line. And when they do actually talk about scientists, they usually point to people like Dr. Willie. He's the darling of the right-wing climate denier caucus. He says greenhouse gases just aren't that bad for you. Senator Inhofe has repeatedly cited his work over the years. The same Senator Inhofe who once said this about climate change.
The fact that all this is happening is due to man-made gases, I really believe is the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on the American people.
The greatest hoax ever perpetrated. And to back him up, he pointed to people like Dr. Seuss.
These are scientists that cannot be challenged.
I'm not too sure about that, Senator, because the New York Times reports Dr. Soon has accepted $1.2 million in funding from the fossil fuel industry, which he hasn't disclosed in most of his scientific papers. Interesting. A guy pushing back on climate change debate while getting paid by oil and gas companies. Well, I'm not a scientist, but I can sure spot a potential conflict of interest when I see one. So nice try. But don't even try to deny this one, because we got you.
I got you too, Al.
Right on, Reverend.
I got you, Al. I know about you.
Well, you know, I don't need no defense. I think Reverend Kraft could defend me in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
But
I don't like South.
I mean, have you seen any picture like that?
Did you get me anything?
So there's a lot of caricature out there. People trying to paint me as some kind of bad guys and all that stuff. But these are people who's really trying to stand as low as... They even put me under this gravitational field. There's a phenomenon called gravitational lensing, so they can use large gravity because there's a lot of mass. They will distort the light, so they will turn the image. But the real science is actually pictured like this, of course. You know, that the light is so powerful, predicted by the way, Albert Einstein theory. So it does show things like that. You know, you might as well study reality rather than Willie soon being distorting things. Well, you know, you are not so big if you don't get on moveon.org. I did get on moveon.org, unfortunately not for the good reason you think. They are trying to get me fired with this. So they're trying to get petition signing. They need 10,000. So March 30th of 2015, they already got 8,610. By the way, those numbers are all fake. I believe that one of my friends caught this thing as soon as maybe less than an hour it came out. I mean, the number was already 8,500. I mean, it's just not real, okay? No one is going to be trying to get Willie Soon fired that quick. And then I checked, July 22nd, they got 8,639. They're apparently not so successful. And then just a few days ago, it's 8,700. So they're not able to try to do those kind of things. But it's just a bit really terrible. It has nothing to do with the science. But what is ultimately important is, of course, you guys may not know this person, but his name is Professor Freeman Dyson. He's from the Institute of Advanced Study in Princeton. If anybody wants to learn anything about physics, if you study things called quantum mechanics, which is actually the macroscopic, explanation of our world, I mean, this is the man. This is the real guy. He's actually the fourth guy who's supposed to win the Nobel Prize in 1965, by the way, the year I was born. And he really says something very good about science. He said that science is not about shaking hand, agreeing, or how beautiful or how ugly you are. It's about actually challenging dogmas. This stuff that is, that is supposedly to be nothing but the truth, but it's really not true in a lot of this sense. So you have to keep questioning. So for that reason, he said that he respects me as a good scientist and a courageous citizen. And that is more than enough for me. In fact, those are the stuff that I really want to show in public. But then, especially for the children, I think the younger kids, it's very important to say that when you stick to the truth, there will be people like Professor Richard Wilson at Harvard, Freeman Dyson at this. I mean, who is Willie Soon, right? I'm just still struggling to be a good scientist. And they actually recognize that you're doing good work. And then I want to challenge another question about money, funding. I've been telling Michael that I stopped receiving federal government funding since 2004 because I find it immoral. So I decided not to take those funding. I rather work very hard and write to private foundation, whoever want to give me the funding, and don't challenge, don't tell me what to do, never ever give me any ideas. I do my work, that's it, that's the deal. Or else there'll be nothing else. Oh, my wife is clapping, so I'm in good shape. But I want to tell this story of Professor Stanley Prusner, okay? This is really a great man. It really had nothing to do with funding. He actually turns out to be the sole Nobel Prize winner in medicine for the discovery of this thing called prion, which is a very, very bad form of protein, but it's not protein per se. It's not a bacteria, it's not a virus. I mean, this thing came along once in a very lifetime. And he found out this particular thing and he got awarded a Nobel Prize. But the story behind how he found this thing is very valuable for, I think, students to know. The connection is actually Professor Frederick Seid, the one that I highlight there. He was actually the first president of the National Academy of Science when National Academy of Science still means something, okay? And Professor Prusner was assistant professor at University of California, San Francisco. He was assistant professor. He ran out of money. He wanted to do this experiment to synthesize these things to see whether you can find this particular bad protein. Money is running out. Funding is getting cut off. He will not get his tenure. He get kicked out. And then he was looking for people like help from Professor Frederick Seid, who has a lot of insight. By the way, he's specialized in physics. If anybody want to know physics again, you read things called group theory, okay? His thesis advisor is Eugene Wigner. He's also a Nobel Prize winner in physics. But they were the one that created this new field of mathematics called group theory, which is really, if anybody know about physics, this is something else that you could not change or could not even succumb or overpass. But he ran out of money, so he needed funding. Professor Frederick Seid happened to be on R.J. Reynolds' committee to try to look out for, funding any useful work or any important work going around. So Professor Frederick Seid basically was able to give money to Prusner to do this experiment that he wanted to do, okay, before he got fired. And then when it come down to money coming from R.J. Reynolds, he said, well, I don't know. All monies are green. I'm not quite clear about all these moral issues here. As long as they have, that you can do this research and honestly and truthfully, I mean, what's the problem of taking R.J. Reynolds' money, right? To do that scientific research. So he claimed that basically he's not a philosopher. And you want to know how valuable that money is? It doesn't matter the amount actually. It's of the order of a few $100,000 at that time, okay? And here's a statement from Stan Prusner himself. With that money, he can buy these equipments and all this lab to set up this experiment so they actually found the answer in 1 year. Rather than working so hard and have multi-generation of rats and all that stuff, it will take him 80 years. I mean, remember, this prion is going to be the ultimate link to a cure to, if you want to study, let's say, stuff like Alzheimer, why do we forget our memory when we get old? Or mad cow disease. I mean, it's prion is the answer. That's why he got awarded this Nobel Prize, because the discovery is so important. But again, remember, if they want to accuse money being dirty and all that stuff, just say that Stan Prusner, okay? R.J. Reynolds money is as clean as anything. I'm among the very few who is also lucky to be able to be attending. On the left there is, of course, Professor Frederick Seid. On the right, of course, the younger self, who attended his 90th birthday. So really, the serious question is, are we really killing ourselves by using, remember, yesterday we use coal, oil, natural gas. By the way, I put a quote there because there will be not enough fossil actually to even produce you. So the idea of you need fossils to make all this stuff is just not so true also. You have to be clear about this because there's a abiogenic way of doing it, okay? So, are we really killing ourselves? Because you know what? Coal, they say, is so dirty, okay? But dirty means what, right? We still need electricity. You don't have electricity, you die. That's it. Here's a fact. This chart here is very easy to read. If you look in terms of US, by the way, the focus here on what clean is, we focus on USA. We really don't care about China, India, at least from my point of view, because that's why we have the best data. And we should never apologize for it. We are America. We take care of our environment, our air, our water, and sea. We don't apologize to Europe or all these communist people who try to tell us otherwise. You look at GDP. Since 1970, increased by 250%. The vehicle miles travel, that much. Energy consumption, we did go up, of course. You need more energy to support life, right? To make life more prosperous and I guess more happy too. CO2 emission, notice it's been going down a little bit since about 2000 something, right? It's been going down a little bit. Look at the most important part, which is the pollution. These are basically stuff called the particulate matters, PM, not Prime Minister. Like thing called nitrous oxide, ozone, and all this other stuff. It's all been going down. We've been getting cleaner over time. Yet they're still accusing us for doing something really bad, for just simply living. Not only that, It's not only the US are telling us, it's the UN, all these people who is trying to even tell us to clean up ourselves, excuse me. And you have data also for Canada. Since 79, it's all of it, all the emission, all the so-called pollutants, O3. Ozone, I told you, is bad for your lung if it's in the water. Sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, and then carbon monoxide, all been going down in Canada too. Canada is also not so bad in terms of taking care of the environment. Oops. God, another problem. Computer kid, come here. All right. What I'm trying to get to next is basically talking about all this so-called particulate PM. And it's a very specific form of PM in the sense that the particle size is small. If it's so big like a little rock, you can breathe it in, right? It's the particle size is in the micron, 2.5 micron, which is 10 to the minus 6 meter. It's extremely small. I'll show you. It's about 1/30th time of your follicle of your hair. So things like this, they've been talking about Beijing. The air quality is so bad now because supposedly from 0 to 500 scale, Beijing is at 755. And in US, guess what our number is? We're roughly about 10 to 30. And they're saying that we're killing ourselves, right? It's completely nonsense. So they show pictures like this in New York Times and places like that to say it's so bad. Well, it's China, they better clean up. And here's how our US Embassy is measuring the amount of particulate emission in Beijing in 2010 to 2013. All these numbers is just roughly to tell you that it's relatively high in Beijing. Perhaps they can do something about it. But don't confuse this with CO2 pollution, quote unquote. CO2 could never be a pollutant, right? Please, whoever knows what's the reason why CO2 could never be a pollutant, raise your hand. Okay, you go ahead, computer kid.
Because there is so much of it, and it's always being consumed by plants and replaced with oxygen.
Right, it's food for plant and marine animals. That's basically the reason. It could never be pollutant because it benefits life, right? Pollutant is something that's harmful to life, isn't it? And here's the situation. They often show you the picture on the right and then they try to scare you. What they forgot to tell you is that a few days later, that's what you get. I mean, my God, who wants to live in this thing every single day, right? I don't. But of course, it's still in China. It's not in the USA. It's really not my problem. I'm so sorry, I'm sorry for these Chinese people, but it has nothing to do with me.
And that's what communist country looks like.
And look at it. Look at the data. It's all over the place. By the way, they're trying to say, the point is that how clean is clean, right? Later, I want to propose to you, the number is basically what we have now. We don't have to do much about it in USA for sure. And this is why they have to create all kinds of strange fake data and lies and cheating and all that stuff to show you how bad things are. And then another thing to remember, this is the data for Beijing, basically showing you that over one whole day, from midnight until midnight again. And then you have data from 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Large part of pollution happened in the sense, it happened during winter month because you have a lot of this weather condition that inverting so that a lot of this particulate stuff get trapped. These are phenomena that it comes and go. You're not going to try to accuse that you're living in that kind of thing permanently, even for people in China. Okay, so I propose to you, that's why you don't see all these Chinese people drop dead, have you? Have you guys seen any massive death of these people because they're breathing in some of this stuff? Now they're going all over the place because it's true all over the world. You have it in New Delhi, it's one of those places. You have it in, New Delhi is like this. This is one of their favorite location. And then during clear day, it looks like this, but they don't like to show this. And they also talk about India now become worse than China. Okay, India and China, nothing to do with me again. This is New Delhi, how bad it is. It is kind of bad, I wouldn't want to live. Los Angeles used to be like this. But the problem in Los Angeles is related to this thing called smog, this chemical stuff, mostly sulfur stuff, sulfur dioxide. Once we put in the catalytic converter, guess what happened? We got no more problem. That was just stupidity of the past, right? And we correct ourselves, we make ourselves, it's good. And why don't we tell China and all these people to put that? Well, it's the cost. Everything is about money, right? It's about cost. Well, it's up to the Chinese if they want to breathe dirty air, it's up to them. I'm not going to tell them what to do. And then in Tehran, Iran, same thing. all this mega city now having that kind of issue, but again had nothing to do with USA. Santiago, Chile. So let's talk about PM. Remember, not Prime Minister, it's particulate matter. You have all these natural sources. You burn the place, all this dust and ashes and all this stuff. Volcano. You even have pollens, you have dust storm, stuff like that. And then the man-made part is very obvious. You know, cigarette. Indeed, there are some particulate particles coming out from a power plant. Of course, people who like to smoke and barbecue and so on and so forth. This is why they even do propose stuff about regulating barbecuing, how much barbecue you could do per day. Indeed, I want to propose to you what this EPA is talking about is actually a designer disease syndrome. The reason why it is so is that because according to the serious medical study, remember I'm not a medicine man, but I look into this thing very carefully. There's just no pathophysiological mechanism that say that the PM2.5 is actually killing you, like including breathing in this stuff. Of course, not forever, right? If you breathe it in a lifetime, you're gonna die. But if you're exposed to it on a natural background, you should be okay. And then there's no standardized. They're just talking about particle size. They don't talk about the chemical composition of these particles. Okay? And then finally, I want to point when I show you the data. Remember, you quantify the risk by showing something called the relative risk, RR. Most of the data that they show is in the order of 1.2. Okay, remember that unit. 1 means there's no effect. 1.2 is very tiny because the standard in epidemiological study is that you need about 2. If you get 2, people will say, yeah, maybe. You need about 10 or 20, then you'll be serious. If you got 1 or 1.2, I think you should just say ha ha ha, right? Because it's just ridiculous. And yet they are saying that this is enough to make a rule and regulation. So for them, they're only talking about size, right? Because it's about 2.5 micrometer. By the way, this wording is too much, but the most important thing is to show you this picture. The PM2.5 is very small particle indeed. In fact, I'm sorry to jump another step ahead already. 2.5 has been out there. The attempt to try to regulate 2.5 particles has been there a long time. But the latest one, they are already talking about nanoparticle. Okay, nano means 10 to the minus 9. They're going deeper and deeper. Everything they want to regulate. But roughly 2.5 particles, you can put about 3 or 4 of this thing across this follicle of your hair. It's the small little stuff, right? So 1/30 to 1/35 of the thing. But as I can say you, if you look at a satellite map, on your left, this is measuring how much particle PM2.5 you have in the air. It's highly concentrated at the area where you have desert. That's Sahara Desert. The red, bright red there in Africa, right? And then all these places in northern China and even in Australia, you can see Western Australia is a deserted area. A lot of this stuff is related to just dust and sea salt, okay? There's nothing to do with pollution. Well, Cairo looked pretty bad. Cairo, right? Cairo, Egypt. I remember I visited Cairo once. During about 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you better run because all the bazaar is full of all the little sand and flying into your thing, you know? So you cover your mouth and things like that. But what are you gonna do? Outlaw desert? I don't think you can do that. Lagos, Nigeria, another one of those places. Again, it's Lagos, Nigeria, not Lagos, USA. In terms of over time, what happened over time, right? The top figure you need to focus is Detroit, okay? You measure, we have data from about 98 until now. Our PM2.5 level has been cleaner and cleaner. Remember, the units. China, you have about 500, 300 in a bad day. We are in the order of 10 to 20, okay, in this number. It's actually measured in something called microgram per cubic. So it's something like a weight per the volume, right? Per cubic meter. We're going down. Other places like India, China, Middle East, all been increasing. Again, is this our problem? I don't think so. And here is over trend. It's much easier to see. Over time, you just focus on whether it's orange or it's blue. We are actually cleaner. Even green is good because green is about no change over time. Okay? But blue means that you've been changing, you've been cleaner and cleaner over time, over this past 30 years or so. We are among the few places that is doing better than what the rest of the world is doing. So I don't know how much more cleaner do we want actually. Do you want to live in a incubated air? Saudi Arabia is another one of those places because you know why? They are desert, right? Mongolia is also desert, I'm sorry. And ultimately, how dangerous is this PM 2.5, right? I just want to focus you on this quote by Lisa Jackson. She's the former EPA administrator. She's now working for Apple. She said that if we can reduce particulate matter to healthy level, quote unquote, healthy level, right? It would have the same impact as finding a cure for cancer in our country. This is showing you that they say that PM 2.5 is going to kill you, okay? Unfortunately, all the death that they're reporting is all from computer. It's not actual death because nobody is dropping death in the thing. And then, of course, you have scary stuff like this from scientific journals. They say, look, this PM 2.5 is contribute to 3.2 million premature deaths. You guys please remember, especially for the student, these are not actual death. These are all computer-generated kind of stuff. Has nothing to do with real death. And then people, when they look at a graph like this, you would think that this is real death. This is so irresponsible in that sense, right? Or they say you didn't read the fine print. Okay? I'll skip this one, but I want to show you. There's another very strange phenomenon. Now, the question to ask is that is actually the changing air pollutants, okay, is causing any of the asthma problem? They say, oh, asthma has been increasing, right? So asthma rate is being plotted by the blue and the red symbol. It's been going up. That is true. Maybe it's over-diagnostic and all that stuff. But guess what air pollutant is doing, right? You guys know in US it's been going down. Are we saying that cleaner air is causing more asthma? I mean, this is empirical fact. They really hate to show data like this. They say, you know why? It's too complicated. You won't be able to understand. Another one of those. Very, very common, very typical. Actually, I'm among the first guy to make this plot. You wonder why medical sciences people don't make this plot. Why do I have to make this plot? I really hate the idea that I have to make this plot in order to tell people that all they are saying about air pollutant causing more asthma for children, that is a very powerful thing. They scare everybody. Oh, you're going to kill your kids, right? Not true. So adding 4 more years of data, you know, that sort of stuff. And now we want to look at the data. Here you plotted on this x-axis is basically the PM level. Again, I told you in US it's very low. Oh, this is a very famous study. They say this is the definitive study that's saying that if you increase particulate matter PM 2.5, you're going to cause more mortality. Okay, this is relative mortality. Again, the number is all within 0.9 to 1.3. I told you the standard epidemiology is 2 at least. You won't even discuss any danger if you don't reach 2. But they are showing graph like this, saying that, oh, basically if you increase the PM 2.5, the risk is going to go up. Okay? But then the thing that nobody read is actually the chart, the scale. I told you, you should laugh at this thing. You should not say that this is going to kill kids. That is how basic the epidemiological is flawed. Of course, they say it's so dangerous, blah, 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 and there's just simply no mechanism to support this. And I want to show you in the actual data that much larger scale, instead of 10 to 20, right here, now we're talking about 200, 400 to 600. Okay? This is for people who smoke cigarettes. Does that mean all the people who smoke cigarettes are going to die of these things? Here's a level of comparison. If you sit in those booths in the airport, you guys want to know how high the PM 2.5 level is? It's 10,000 in that unit. This is in China, 600. What about US? 10 to 20, right? Are we going to kill ourselves breathing those kind of air? I don't think so. Even in those situations, obviously the people didn't die off, right? So human lung is capable of quite a lot more things. Another thing that is very misleading that you should realize this day is that if you want to say outdoor air is bad, in Korea, for example, you find out that most of the time we spend in our life is basically indoor, not outdoor. So, you know, it's a very strange situation where a lot of this claim is just simply untrue and very dangerous if you follow the ideology. Sorry for showing one more chart. This is really important chart because it's the latest result that came out from some of my friends, Professor Stan Young and Smith from North Carolina State. They actually finally produced the definitive study, in my humble opinion, who just got published about last week. what they are showing is that if you get the PM 2.5 level from 0 to about 100, they take all the data available in California and then study all the death certificate and level of pollution. Here's what they are able to show. Basically, there's no effect. There's absolutely no effect saying that PM 2.5 going to cause any death or any changes in your output in terms of your lung function, in terms of so many other properties you want to measure, which you have data for. This is very a definitive study, by the way. Anybody who wants to say that PM 2.5 is bad for you, you show them this particular study. And you can count by yourself. This is over 8 air basins in California and 37,000 exposure days. So it's a very good set of data. This is what the problem we have. So this is the area showing you the background behind the study. And then California is really mad, by the way. They're gonna like outlaw diesel trucks and all that kind of stuff. Now I want to quickly go over something that I spend a lot of time chasing, which is ground ozone. I told you ground ozone is bad for your lung, right? And the most important day I want to talk about is 2008 Beijing Olympics. I hope some of you were born already by that time, right? Are you guys born at that time?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Beijing Olympic was a big event. Before we go that, on ground ozone, I want to tell you, a lot of the data that is being provided by all these people is just not useful. This group is actually based in Boston. It's Health Environmental Institute. They are basically radical liberal left who's trying to use science as a cover. They say that India is the standard is 100, whereas US we are so dirty. We actually put it at about 150, right? That is just really strange. I don't think India people care that much about their environment in that sense. And I want to tell you about this story about Beijing Olympic because the Chinese government were very worried. They want to make sure that, quote unquote, the air is clean for everybody, right? So this is a study that is happening in China. So they put out all this stuff. We are crying while you're breathing. It's so bad. Everybody's going to die. And this is central China, of course, in a Tiananmen Square on a bad day. Clear day, remember, there's always clear day. So in 2001, when they got awarded this thing to host the Olympics, the Beijing city actually say that they're going to make the air quality comparable to air in other host city. So that's the promise. And you want to know how much money they spend? The total cost is 43 billion, but they spend $9 billion on air quality improvement, they claim. This is the problem, right? I want to tell you that this $9 billion completely down the drain where you can spend the money for doing so many other things. The reason why is that you really cannot clean that much of ozone in that sense. So they essentially trying to say that you have legislation and technology is going to equal the clean air. That's basically the equation they want to propose. It's completely not true. And they call it the Beijing Olympic spirit. So they have scientific paper. Remember, they always have some scientific paper because the whole peer review system, guess what has been turned into? It's a power review system. These people are reviewing each other, they are proving each other. And people like me, they give me an extra hard time, but actually in science is good. You just show them why they are wrong, right? That's the positive message I want to get across. So yeah, during the Beijing Olympic time, if you don't read, it's like basically the stuff that is low is during Beijing Olympic because they spend a lot of energy. They shut down all the factory, they move stuff out from Beijing City, the central region. So the SO2 it does go down before the event. It was a little bit higher, then it goes down a little bit. NOx, it's another one of those things that's not so good for you, that's true. It go down. And then PM, it go down. And then this one is called, non-methane volatile component, all this other stuff. Okay, it's going down. But the question is that, where is the ozone data? And PM 2.5, I can see, is going up and up. By the way, if you look at this data, you hardly can tell yourself whether it's really going down or not, right? This is the kind of stuff that where the numbers really mean something, but they don't really tell you the details. But so here's the comparison. Using Beijing Olympic, during the Olympics, the level is about 70. But all the US city is all way, way down there. 10, 20, that's it. That's all we are. And I've been going around trying to look for the data of surface ozone because they claim that, during Beijing Olympic, people were able to breathe better, and they actually have data, they say, of all the hospital visit, that the lung function improved. But I've been looking around, where is the ozone data to support that if you decrease the ozone, your air function become better? It turns out that they don't have data, actually. I look around this paper, it says they have this truck going around the city, they're trying to measure all of this. And then you look around, you study the paper 5-10 times, guess what? No ozone data was shown, okay? And this is what they're showing you. They've been driving around the whole Beijing city. measuring things, but they don't dare to release the ozone data. Still no ozone data in the paper. Then they invoke somebody published in this paper. By the way, it does involve a Harvard person, so Harvard to the rescue. Professor Michael McElroy, this guy is also a very radical person. And they claim they have this paper and have ozone data. So I look into that paper. Guess what happened? Oh, it's not ozone data, it's the model data. It's not ozone, it's not measuring. And here's what they show you. Oh, they can show you map. Oh, this O3, which is the ozone, is reducing. But those are model output, those are not measurements. And then when I look closer, oh, they have ozone data. They show on your left, Min-Yun O3 monthly. They show you during Beijing Olympic, the red little dot is going down. During August, right, and September. The rest of other stuff in previous year has been going up during the summer month. And then I got very curious. Where is Min-Yu? We're supposed to talk about Beijing. Okay? Here's what Beijing is. It's 100. That far away. That is where they measure the data. And then they're talking about Beijing right here. It's like really trying to talk about, I don't know, Boston, and then you're measuring the data in Connecticut. That's really crazy, these people. And they're trying to tell us that, oh, that's the data, we got the data. So it does take 16 good doctors to screw this light bulb. Okay? I found the data. You guys want to know, right? The punchline is very simple. Maybe I should skip it, it's just too boring. But they have this study, they say that, oh, the lung function and the heart is increasing, and they found some really good result. But in terms of Beijing, guess what happened? All the stuff decreased. They spent $9 billion, and it's hidden in this one single sentence. In contrast, ozone concentration increased by 24%. The reason why is that this ozone has a complicated chemistry and all this environmental condition. It's related to even plants and all this other stuff where they don't want to study. They keep trying to say that you can control this ozone by just having less truck or less car and all that. This is where the science is going bonkers, really bad. Okay, don't do that. After $9 billion, you have this to show. And they've been hiding this from day one. By the way, nobody ever talk about this again. It's always Willie soon talking about this. I just curious actually, by the way. I tell you the truth, especially for students. Do I look like I want to be famous? I just checked the thing because I was curious. I was really curious. This guy have a little doubt, I'm going to convince him later. Here's the data. The ozone really has been increasing over that time period during Beijing where they actually stop everything. It shows you that this ground ozone problem is a very serious stuff. I'm going to skip this. Okay, almost near the end. We got to drain the swamp. I want to say that true thing lead and untrue thing mislead. But now I want to finish this up by telling you this story. It's based on this book that just came out by my friend Steve Malloy. It's about human experiment with particulate matter. Remember what the US EPA say, right? This thing is really bad for you, okay? So if it's bad for you, and if they think they have data to do this, why are you still studying? Actually, one of the things that they worry very much is also like this. If you say that CO2 is so dangerous, okay, I agree with you. Maybe we stop all the funding. Oh, that's what they got. No. We got this detail, we don't know this, we don't know that, right? They always do that. And here's the point. Remember how bad it is. This totally lethal, this PM. Just death, no sickness. Because the quote coming from Lisa Jackson, saying that particulate matter causes premature death. It doesn't make you sick. You won't even get sick from it. You just drop dead, basically, right? If it's so dangerous, do you think that we should stop all the funding and just do what they say? I think we should, if it's true, isn't it? Reverend would agree because God will tell us that we have to do that if it's so dangerous.
That's right.
That's right, we will. But it's not true, okay? And they say, oh, it can kill you within hours, it kills hundreds and thousands, and old and sick people are especially vulnerable. That's the point. That's what EPA say. And guess what they do? This is what they do. They pipe in diesel truck, they have this pipe, they get the exhaust, they pipe out and put this stuff into the chambers. It's a gas chamber, guys. You wouldn't believe that this thing has happened in our current time. These people are actually doing it to subjects who quote unquote volunteer, of course. I'll show you people that die actually during this experiment. And guess what EPA is telling them? When they advertise looking for people who want to volunteer, of course they get paid for a certain amount of money. During the exposure, you may experience a minor degree of airway irritation, cough, shortness of breath, or wheezing, and these symptoms will disappear 2 to 4 hours. But didn't they just say that it's going to drop dead, it doesn't cause you sick, and then now they advertise, they sell things like this. And then during the actual advertisement in the EPA webpage, they say people with heart or lung disease, smokers, children, older adults are likely to be affected by this particular PM exposure. And this is the advertisement. Age 20, 25 to 70, and then they want you to be overweight. Are you overweight, a little too big, or you have high sugar, blood pressure, and all that stuff? They actually advertise for those slightly sick people to test because they want to prove that this thing is so bad for you. Okay? And they subject you under the experiment. This is illegal, by the way. Okay? And then they look for people that is 50 to 75 years old. All right, Reverend? This is what our US government is doing. And they're still not backing off. Can you believe that? Anyway, another advertisement, 60 to 80 in various cities, of course, North Carolina, all over the place. And my friend Steve Malloy dedicated his book to this person, Nicole Wan. This is the Chinese students who actually want to make a little bit of income, but they insert those, those things inside your lung to measure stuff and all that, and eventually she just died, right? This is very unfortunate victim of a US EPA bad procedure. So here's the conclusion that Steve asked me to show you, right? If you base on these things, you would think that this experiment is just unethical, right? If not illegal. And they have withheld information from this institutional review board, and all the medicine, and Dr. Kishore can tell you all this group. And then the NAS committee, which is the National Academy of Science, and they don't even tell the subject, the people who took those things, they told you it's going to cause you a little bit of uncomfort and all that. But you die actually. Some people die. So, if PM is as deadly as what EPA say, then this experiment really violates every law established for protection of human subject under the Nuremberg Code. This is what my friend showed, this sort of thing. Single-handedly, he just keep pursuing it. He found the evidence, he keep asking questions. They want to shut him up, of course. So the only way they don't have this to be a legal problem is that this PM is not as dangerous as they say, which I think is this case. Okay? But the fact that they actually performed this experiment under the assumption that it's going to kill people is really, really abhorring. Okay? There's just no other options. I think with that, I'm going to stop now. Thank you. If we have time, okay. Stand up, as Hal would say.
Would they have been able to have done that experiment with some sort of worthless animal, like, I don't know, some chipmunk?
Yeah, they have done all of that. In fact, yesterday I just mentioned this study from Duke University, this $200 million over about 10 years kind of period. So that's still a lot of money, okay? And those guys do those things on rats and all this other stuff. Yeah, they do that. But a lot of this is like this. You all remember the most number one rules in medicine. Paracelsus say this, right? Dosage, right? Is the ultimate. You know how high a dosage is. They always expose all these animals to unreasonable amount. Remember, I told you our air is relatively clean. 10 to 30. They actually want to ask you to be 0. 0, you just might as well don't live. It's impossible, right? Natural background sometimes can be higher, as you can see the dust storm. So the short answer is yes. Yes, they have done a lot of those experiments, but a lot of those experiments are almost useless. It was non-sensitive, meaning it's not a useful experiment. You know, a lot of this stuff is just very sad because it's not about finding out exactly how it happens. That's what we mean that there's no medicine, there's no exact mechanism in which how this PM can actually kill you through, let's say, blocking some cell function and things like that. They constantly produce a lot of this pseudo-fake result by using fake statistics. There's another very big abuse in this area of science, which is to use statistics to scare people. That's why relative risk, RR, that thing. I told you that in epidemiology you need 2.0. They got all the result, all the order of 1, which means no effects. And 1.2 is also doesn't mean that much. And they use that to scare you. I mean, that is the best study they have, the Harvard 6-city study, according to them. Oh, another issue that is very important. I hope you all agree. Don't you think that when they publish those things, should they give the data to everybody to look at it? Who don't agree that we should release the data, let everybody study? Nobody, right? Guess what they do? When you ask for the data, no, they are not going to give it to you. This is what our government is doing to us. Any more questions? Maybe you can ask me anything after this, right? Thank you.